Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome back to another Mortal Kombat 1 video. Now today, unlike our typical history of the story-based videos, I wanted to touch on quite a hot topic of debate currently, and that is regarding Homelander for Mortal Kombat 1, as he is the next big DLC for the game, having been officially previewed at the CCXP event in Brazil. Whilst brief, we did get a very good glimpse and exhibition of how Homelander looked, but of course, most importantly, how he sounded, as a big point of contention has been Antony Starr's portrayal of the character, or in this current situation, lack of. So today, we'll actually be doing a deep dive into why, the potential somewhat politics behind as to why this has occurred, and what exactly may have gone on here to lead to where we are now, as it is going to make for a pretty interesting topic to discuss and analyse how licensing kind of works for MK games, as well as the different issues that have plagued it from installment to installment, whether that be them expiring in game, being portrayed by a different actor, or in some very rare cases, being pulled altogether. So again, whilst not what you typically see from me, I still think that this will make for a pretty interesting watch regardless. But before we do begin, I'd of course, as always, super appreciate it if you could of course give this video a thumbs up. It's a small thing, but it really does help support out this video, as well as the channel as a whole in the algorithm. And hey, if you want to see more, please do feel free to subscribe. Anywho, let's jump right into things. Now, guest characters aren't anything new, especially in the hemisphere of fighting games, as there are tons of series that have integrated them in their franchise. Tekken's done it, Street Fighter's done it, and Soul Calibur was arguably the most popular one to have done so. But since the creation of Mortal Kombat 9, and Midway's purchase by Warner Brothers, later of course being turned into that of NetherRealm Studios, since then we have entered an age of the series where guest characters have kind of become a norm, with Freddy Krueger being the first of many that would come from game to game. Mortal Kombat 1 is no exception in that regard, as half the content of its combat pack would of course be guests. Yet, even with that noted, the series itself has had a fair few issues with the guest characters they've had. Whilst outright never officially confirmed, it is widely believed that the inclusion of Freddy Krueger in Mortal Kombat 9 would actually lead to that game being pulled from Steam, as the licensing of the character changed from hand to hand. So, for one reason or another, with its ownership now in the hands of Craven House, the game was seemingly taken down. Overall, it's a pretty strange situation, because actually despite this, Krueger would actually remain playable in other games like Dead by Daylight. Moving along to its previous installment, Mortal Kombat 11, this combat pack in particular would suffer from many issues behind closed doors, with arguably the biggest here being Ash Williams. For those unaware, Ash Williams was originally intended to actually appear in the game's combat pack. It seemed like a done deal as it was set in stone, and in the data mined files of the game, you can actually find all of his voice lines. But for one reason or another, the licensing would actually be pulled, bringing it effectively to an end. Warner nor NetherRealm have actually officially come out detailing what really was happening here, but it would actually explain why the Combat Pack trailer was revealed so late in the game's release, as the Joker reveal made it pretty evident that this was all a very last minute change. But this wouldn't be the only issue with the Combat Pack, as the betrayal of the Terminator would not be done by Arnold Schwarzenegger, as despite having his likeness down to a T, it was very evident in-game that it wasn't him. And around this time, it was revealed that Arnie didn't want to voice characters in extremely violent games, which is completely understandable, at least until you realize he did the voice work for Dutch in the Predator game. Totally not broken logic right there. But it is very evident that something very similar is happening with Homelander. So what exactly is going on here? Well, for us to talk about this, we gotta touch on licensing and how it kind of works for Mortal Kombat games. Warner will go out their way to gain the licensing and rights to use a particular character for their game. Whether or not there's a set time frame is kind of left unknown, but it's not something too complex here. As time has gone on, however, we have seen the somewhat cruxes of this cross-promotion, and that is that some of these licenses may be temporary, they may expire, or be pulled in their entirety. Along with this, it isn't just so much the character they purchase, but actually their license. Because think about it, a majority of guest characters purchased for a combat pack typically have movies or something going on with them coming out in the same time frame. Omni-Man's a perfect example of this, as it was all done in preparation for Season 2 of Invincible. By purchasing their likeness, there is an obvious association and relation to what they're promoting. It's very smart and makes sense here. But when they purchase the rights of the character, it isn't really just the character they purchase, but more so their likeness. It's why you couldn't really customize the Predator, because they only exclusively bought the likeness and rights to that specific version. And that is ultimately what we're kinda seeing with Homelander here, as whilst they've purchased the physical likeness of Antony Starr, which has made it pretty clear that Amazon owns the likeness of his portrayal, it doesn't necessarily mean that he has to play the character, as he is just an actor, not the character himself. In fact, he's actually gone down on record saying that he was open to playing it, but apparently the ship has sailed. So what could this technically mean? Well, there's a number of different factors in play here, because he has actually portrayed this character in-game before, doing the voice work for Homelander in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So he's absolutely no stranger to it or against it. So naturally, on paper, you would think this is a tied together deal. But that's evidently not the case. So the other two options we do have here is the first, that his schedule was far too busy to provide the voice lines. As let's face it, filming and acting does take up a lot of time, and scheduling conflicts isn't something unheard for with actors. So this could definitely be a very contributing case here. But it's very evident that Warner does have a very good relationship with Amazon, as they were able to get J.K. Simmons for Omni-Man. Thus, if Antony Starr needed time to portray the character, I'm sure that Amazon would have given it to him, as it would most certainly benefit them. Thus, I think it comes down to something far more simple. Money. Especially after tasting some of that sweet Activision money. Now, this isn't a dig at Starr, far from that, but I'd imagine after being paid by Activision for what I would say is very easy work, since all of his voice lines are universal and aren't character specific, if he was paid a large sum by Activision, and let's say Warner Brothers approached him for the same amount, but for more work, then understandably, he might not quite feel as incentivized to take the role. Keep in mind that it is a lot of work, as it's one arcade ladder ending, and then 3 more intros per character, with the roster eventually getting 28 characters by the end of the first combat pack. That's a lot of work, so I definitely do think that in the case of Antony Starr, this may be a contributing factor as to why he's not portraying him. Plus, you do gotta keep in mind that Warner's been kind of going through a rough patch financially, especially from its merge with Discovery. Not saying that money's super tight for them, they're a multi-billion conglomerate empire. But with everything going on, I'd say it's a case of, here's a set amount of money. You can take it to do the job, or we can simply find someone else to do it. And I think that is what has happened here. So there's definitely quite a few parallels here between him and Arnold. But the reason behind them not participating does look to be very different. As for how he sounds in game, it doesn't sound bad. Here's the thing, we only kind of have one line to go off currently, but it does sound good. Not amazing, as it's not him, but it doesn't sound bad. I do highly doubt we'll have a Terminator situation, as no one has to replicate an accent. But it is undoubtedly a shame that we as fans kinda suffer here, especially after having JK voice Omni-Man. It sucks, but I gotta respect Antony Starr for knowing his worth, if that is money was a contributing issue here. I do think it is a real shame, because I really feel that NetherRealm really tapped into the cultural zeitgeist with these guest characters. Something I would say is far superior from that of Eleven's. it's just kind of a travesty that we don't have the full portrayal. So now, I relay this question to all of you. What are your thoughts on the whole Homelander situation? What do you think prevented Starr from voicing the character? And was this a make or break situation for you? As I know to many, Antony Starr is Homelander, and it's honestly very hard to disagree, as it's ultimately the role that has led to the most success for him. Please do comment down below, as I'd love to hear your input, as it's honestly a very interesting and evolving conversation. So if there's anything I've missed out, please do throw it down below. Anywho everyone, that's been it for me. So as always, take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.